Hello, welcome to Stories That Work. I'm your host, Deacon Adam Roberts, or as some call me, Deacon Finn, or Deacon Finian, or Deacon Funyon. Just depends on who you are and how well we know each other. So my guest today is Father Michael Nasser, who's been my boss at least twice, maybe more. I'm not sure if we can keep count. But he is the pastor of St. Nicholas in Grand Rapids, if that's correct.
That's correct.
There's a couple of parishes there. And we're going to be talking about regional and national of Orthodox events, more specific, because he is hosting the Antiochian National Convention, your parish is, which means that your schedule is kind of crazy. Yeah, so before we get into that topic, if you could introduce yourself. We have a lot of viewers that are not that may not be Antiochian or not that plugged in with what you're doing. So if you could introduce yourself first, and then we'll talk about our topic.
All right. So I am Father Michael Nasser. I am the pastor here at St. Nicholas in Grand Rapids. Thankfully, we have several Orthodox parishes, Antiochian and other. But St. Nicholas is a parish that I have been pastoring here for about 3.5 years. And as Deacon Adam said, we are hosting this summer's Archdiocese Convention. A lot of people call it the National or the National Convention. But for our Canadian brothers and sisters, it's the Archdiocesan because some people get offended. Canada is not the 51st state. We love you all. We do. We know you don't live in igloos. We know you don't go say A all the time, although some of you do. But no, so it's the Archdiocesan Convention being held here this July in beautiful Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay. I'm glad you pointed that out. I often maybe it be familiarity with our Canadian brothers that we forget, but I do have some friends across the border, so I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yep.
So with that, I think that sometimes it can be easy to see this convention or other events that are regional, national, or a larger, not that are outside of our own community, outside of our city, as just a burden or just something that we're required to do.
Right.
I myself can easily think of some people that have become important to me, that I love dearly and talk to on a regular basis, that I would not have met outside of this specific convention that actually your parish is hosting.
Yep.
And so we want to talk about the value of these events. We want to talk about what you're doing different, and that we're now starting to see, and I don't know if you have any numbers on this, you may not, more and more specifically lay people and some clergy visiting multiple jurisdictional events and not just kind of staying within their own confines.
Right.
And so these are the topics I'm hoping we can talk about, because the last thing I'll say is we represent 0.35% of the population. 0.35. And so these relationships really matter across North America. So what's the first thing that you think we should talk about?
Well, I think, when you mentioned the importance, a lot of people, when they think about a church convention, whether it's a diocesan conference or a national archdiocesan convention, like, why is this important? Does this really affect me? And I think it really does. And I think especially because of what we understand as what we call Orthodox ecclesiology, what we think about the church. We very easily to say to people, you should come to liturgy because praying at home isn't the same. It's not the same as when you come together with your brothers and sisters. So we get that on a parish level. We get it instinctually that we have to come together. But as Orthodox, we exist as Orthodox persons. We're members of a parish. But we forget the importance of the fact that our parishes are part of a larger body, a larger group. And that's really important. It's important that we understand who we are as parishioners, not only of a parish, but of a diocese that has a bishop, or an archdiocese that has an archbishop, a metropolitan. And it's one thing to say it and think about it. Yeah, I get the fact that I'm a member of this, but you don't experience it until you come together. So that's why it is important to come to these things. People will say, well, I know who I am. Well, I could argue that with somebody who says it's not important to come to the convention. And I'd say, well, what? But you tell your people it's important to come to the parish. So I think we really have to understand that it's not enough to say theoretically, I know I'm a member of a a jurisdiction or a diocese or an archdiocese, if you don't go to those gatherings and experience, especially in worship, then it's still theoretical. So I would say that until you go and be with people, literally standing next to them in services, in liturgy, in workshops, and other things, even social events, that you don't really get what it means until you're actually there with them in the same place.
Yeah, I was reminded last year, and I kind of knew this, but it hit me deeply that what makes us a part of the canonical Orthodox Church is our metropolitan.
Yeah.
And our metropolitan wants us there.
Yeah.
And so I started to have a little bit of something I needed to review and within my own heart of, if I don't want to be there, am I prepared to disobey my metropolitan?
Right.
And I realized I had a lot of laziness and a lot of my own personal issues I had to deal with. I need to be obedient, whether I'm clergy or laity or somewhere in the middle with the minor orders. This is what our metropolitan wants. He wants us to be a family. He wants us to come together. And this is when it happens. This is when we all get to come together. It's like a family reunion.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which it's a great analogy, because how many of us have been dragged as kids to family reunions? Why do I have to go in the car just to see these people that we hardly even know? Yeah. But parents know. The parents know that if you don't spend time with your cousins, you're not going to understand what it means that you're part of their family. So I love that analogy of family reunion. And the fact that just because the metropolitan, the bishop says to come, yeah, we should obey because of that. But why are they asking? Why is it important? If we ask that and even ask them, they're going to tell you it's because we need to be together. It's because we need to have this identity. Our bishop in our diocese, Bishop Anthony, talks a lot about the fact that we are a family in this diocese. That sure, we understand who we are both within the parish on one level and the archdiocese in another. Absolutely, those things are both critical and important. But we have a diocesan family, and so Bishop Anthony says, come to the PLC, come to the fall gathering, come to the spring gathering. Not just as he needs numbers, like he's going to get graded, he needs numbers. He wants to see his family gather because he knows it strengthens us. And I know I'll even say a lot of my brothers aren't always big on the PLCs, the convention, but I always challenge them, and I'll challenge them more this year, being the host pastor of this convention. It is a matter of obedience to our hierarchs, but it's also a matter of obedience to what they want. And what they want is for all of us to be together. And let's be honest, even as clergy, it's really easy to let my vision of my own pastorate here drift into really what would be an episcopate of I want to do things my way. Well, that's not my job. I'm the proistomenos. I'm the presiding priest here on behalf of my bishop and my metropolitan. So coming together and being gathered together reminds me really more of who I am than when I'm not together with them. So it's important to understand why they want us to get together.
There's another aspect of this that I think is important for people who may not realize the value of, and this is similar to, I would say, seminary. One of the big values of seminary is the friendships and networking that is formed and that cohort mentality. And so at these events like the convention, you're able to go deeper with some friendships. You're able to spend some time with someone that may be doing something that you're interested in. I learned so much from other parishes about what they're doing and what they're doing well and how that can help us. And so there's a lot more on that level that's not even scheduled.
Right.
But there's time to spend. You get to spend time with people that you really should spend time with.
Right. Yeah. I when I was the camp director at the village for those 10 years, I would go to these camping conventions. And on the one hand, it was always awkward. I was usually the only guy dressed like a priest, even though there were probably other Catholic priests, but they wore whatever they wore, casual clothes. So, and I wasn't with our Orthodox brothers and sisters, so it was outside of my comfort zone in a lot of ways. But I got to hang out with people that were dealing with things that I was dealing with. To other camp directors dealing with homesick kids and injury rates and safety regulations, all that. And it was those conversations that happened in the coffee shop. It happened, in the hallway or after the workshop. I learned a ton from people that were, like you said, my peers. And so the same way with our church conventions, we don't always plan on, I'm going to sit with, my friend from seminary, Father so-and-so, and say, what are you doing about this? But I will end up having those conversations. I will, just because we get together, we talk about what's going on. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There's this official schedule, which we're working hard to make really valuable for people that come, because it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money. But you're right, it's all the things that aren't on the schedule, those conversations that I think are one of the most valuable things for why we come to events like that.
There's so many different directions to go, so I'm going to give you a couple of ideas, and you tell me which one kind of is most important, because we don't have forever to talk about this.
Sure.
One is the importance of not being in isolation. The clergy need to come together as often as possible. Our laity need to see the Orthodox world outside of their own parish. And so there is it is easy to just kind of be a recluse a little too much.
Yeah.
Even in your own parish, you might be heavily involved in your parish, but you're not getting out and seeing the world of the Orthodox Church. And so there's that aspect. There's also a whole lot of workshops that you're offering I'm very excited. If you've seen the list, I think there's something for everyone. I mean, I'm going to have to miss out on some.
Right.
There's really valuable workshops coming up.
Yeah.
And then getting to worship together in the presence of, and I will tell you, this is quite touching. Our Orthodox faith is maintained through our bishops, and to be there with all of the bishops at the same time, and all of the clergy and all of the laity, this is the only time it happens.
Right.
When we're all together.
Right.
So there's just so many layers of what's happening.
Yeah, and they're all important, and we could talk for a long time about each of them. I think you're absolutely right. The worship life that we have together. I mean, I still remember as a kid, well, a couple of things. One, to go to liturgy more than once a week and to have it several days in a row was a unique experience. That was great. But to see our bishop there, to see other priests there, to see my friends there, and then if you put all that together, that's not an experience you can replicate. I mean, we all, thank God, we have these great camping programs, and our kids just can't wait to get back to be at the village or Camp St. Thecla, whatever their camp happens to be. And it's being together with their friends in worship, at play, at the dining hall, whatever. And that's why these conventions, having all those parts, the worship life is crucial to it. And it's wonderful to have that, to be with our bishops, with our metropolitan. But yeah, and you're right. We put a lot of work into workshops. I think people don't understand these conventions have been going on for a long time. This is the 54th biennial, and not that we've had them every 2 years. They were every year for a while. And I forget what actually the year was, the first Archdiocese Convention, but it's been decades. And back then we understood instinctually we needed to get together because there were so few of us. Well, like you mentioned, there's still relatively few of us. And sometimes because there are more than there used to be, we feel the need isn't there. But the need is there just as much as ever to come together. But what's changed is that we have a large part of our parishes now that don't have that history of, I go to the convention to see my friends and even to see my family. There aren't as many of those folks around, but there are a lot of new folks that say, I want to go to a church convention because I want to worship, I want to see our bishop, I want to learn. So we put a lot of effort and a lot of money into what we're calling Workshop Wednesday. We have a couple workshops on Tuesday for those that come in that early in the week. We want people to come as much as they can. But definitely we're saying to everybody, get here Tuesday because you don't want to miss Workshop Wednesday. We have done our best to say, if this is an Archdiocesan Convention, we owe it to folks coming to offer a lineup that they can't get at their parishes. They can't even get at their diocese. We want to bring in really great speakers to talk about really important topics. And so that's what Workshop Wednesday is all about. You're going to have, of course, liturgy that morning. We're doing some things to make it more convenient. Instead of having to go run down to Starbucks or run to a restaurant, you're going to come out of liturgy and there's going to be a buffet breakfast there. We're trying to keep it as reasonable as we can with the price, a la carte menu kind of thing. But we want you to eat and have some time to relax a little bit, but then get off to workshops because we have 3 workshop sessions scheduled for that day. Really for everybody. I'm glad you said that because that's our goal, is to make this something for everybody. We're doing something very different that I don't know has ever been done at our Archdiocesan Convention before. We're doing a workshop. It's kind of a super mega workshop just for the clergy. It's actually going to cover the entire schedule of Wednesday. So 3 one-hour time blocks tied together into a program. And we're partnering with Faith Tree Ministries, who have put together an incredible workshop with one main goal, and that is to help our clergy be effective at organizing their parish into a working grouping of ministries. You know, we go to seminary, we learn a lot of things, patristics and scripture and how to serve vespers. Nobody taught me, how do I get people together to work together for the ministry of the church? So we brought together, Faith Tree really has brought together this wonderful collection of speakers to take our clergy through in what's going to be a really dynamic several hours of workshops. So that's a sort of a personal favorite, although we have great speakers for the other ones. I'm really excited for what Faith Tree is putting together. And pretty soon you're going to start to see some more advertising, even a video promoting that great event.
You probably don't know, this is kind of funny. I did not plan this, but last week's guest was Father Timothy Backling.
Nice.
Yeah. And we talked about, if you haven't seen that episode, for anybody who's watching, please go back and check it out. The focus was on Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University.
Okay.
And that was an integral part of them developing Faith Tree, because it brought them to attention. That was back when I don't remember exactly what name they were under, but it was kind of the early stages of Faith Tree. Right. And we talked about Faith Tree last week. So it's kind of funny that you're bringing that up.
Yeah.
I want to mention something that, and I want to give thanks to Bishop John Abdullah, who pointed this out to me in a different conversation, but it really was helpful. And in the conversation, we were talking about how different metropolitans are called upon by God to do different things. And Metropolitan Philip was called upon to establish in a very incredible way the things he established. And it takes our new metropolitan to figure out, where do we go from here? I identify with Metropolitan. I'm an establisher, but I don't want to be the guy that takes that to the next step. Right. You know, that's not my gift. And people that know me know that I love to start things and then hand them off. Right. And so we have the gift of Metropolitan Joseph, who's taking a look at what Metropolitan Philip has established and what was needed, and how do we improve upon that. And so he's been incredibly gracious and understanding in where we need to start to take things to the next level. And one example would be those workshops, which changes the structure of the convention. Another thing that he changed, and you may know of some other things that we need to talk about. That's why I'm introducing this, is back in Boston, we changed the reporting feature. You know, he felt like we could share those reports ahead of time and talk about more important things. So is there anything else that you want to talk about in terms of improvements, where we're moving forward?
Yeah, and I think it's the things you're mentioning. We really want this to be a value for everybody that comes. Now, we are working really hard to make it affordable, because we understand these things can be really expensive. I mean, a recent convention in the last couple of years, you know, parking my car would have cost me $65 a night just to park the car, let alone to park me and my family and to feed us. So they're expensive. We're working really hard to make it affordable. Our $149 a night for a convention, we think is a great rate. It includes free parking. But our reason is not just to make it cheaper. We want to make it available to as many people as possible to come together. Frankly, a lot of folks can't afford some of these. We're trying to make this as affordable as we can. Being in a medium-sized city like Grand Rapids allows us to do that more than a big city can. The big cities can't offer rates like that at a hotel big enough to handle the kind of size that we need. So making it affordable, but then once people are actually going to be here, why was it important that they came? And it's for all the reasons we've already mentioned. It's the worship together, it's the networking, the meeting of people, seeing old friends, reuniting, and then these workshops that we're talking about. You mentioned the General Assembly, which is what Metropolitan Joseph has revamped. It used to be 2 whole days of meetings, and most of that hearing reports, to which he took out and said, here's a massive document that we all get electronically over a month before the convention. It says, read them through, study them, and Bring your questions, bring your comments, bring your suggestions, but let's not waste time when we're together, because that's valuable time. Every moment is valuable. So we've done that, and because that's shorter, we actually he was really brave and almost wanted to cut it down farther than we wanted to, and the board of trustees said, "Well, don't go so fast." So we've cut it down some to make more room for things like the workshops and other opportunities. We want our folks to come together and have fun together. So we've got some great excursions. Most people don't know that Lake Michigan beaches are rated some of the top beaches in the country. That's something from me. I grew up in Southern California, so to say they're great beaches here actually means something. We want people to have fun and to see their old friends and meet new friends. Those are all great things. I think I got to spend time with our Metropolitan recently. He came and visited our parish, mainly because I wanted him to get to know our people and our people to get to know him. Here we are hosting Archdiocese Convention, and most of our folks had never met him. To his credit, our Metropolitan goes primarily where he's needed most, which is often trouble spots or parishes going through difficulties. Thank God we live relatively peaceful here, and so we didn't need him in that respect. But I told him, I still need you to come and share your presence and your wisdom with us. And one thing I've learned to appreciate about him, the more I get to know him, is he really is all about, as he says, saving the souls. That's his goal as our Metropolitan. And so he wants everything he's doing, including a convention. So he's like, what does a convention have to do with salvation? According to our Metropolitan, it has everything to do with it. If it doesn't, we're not going to do it. That's really the criteria he's laid out for us for how we structure the convention. And so one of the goals he gave us, which is tough, is to say, here's a full schedule, and these are all things we have to accomplish between the liturgical life and the workshops and the meetings and the business and the fun. He also said to us very clearly, make it enjoyable. Don't rush us from one event to the other. And so that's been tough to do, but we've done some unique things. The breakfast station is one of those ways of trying to buy time instead of rushing off down the street to the coffee shop or standing in line in Starbucks, having some time to come and get a bite to eat and a cup of coffee, but without being rushed off to the next thing. So we've tried to do some things so it can be an enjoyable time for everybody and not just, like you said, rushed from one thing to the next. But he really is all about, it really is for him all about salvation, and everything in there is how do we encourage that with what we're doing.
My last question involves what we'll call, if we're seeing our cousins at this family reunion, maybe some distant cousins, and that I'm seeing firsthand more and more people, both clergy and laity, attending other events hosted by other jurisdictions and getting a lot out of it. And so whether it's the North American Council, whether it's the GOA Congress, whether it's a Ukrainian event or ROCOR event, whatever it is, we're seeing people see the value in going to these events when they can, especially taking advantage if it's close to you. For
Right.
example, the GOA Congress was a national a few years ago. And so a lot of people from other jurisdictions that were close by said, hey, we might as well go and visit. And so Grand Rapids is close to a lot of churches from a lot of jurisdictions.
Yep.
And you're offering a lot of value to people outside of the Antiochian jurisdiction.
Right.
So I think that's important. They know that there's a really growing, welcoming atmosphere across the board.
Yeah, Metropolitan Philip used to say that the cause of Orthodox unity is like a mighty river. There's only so long that it can be put off. It's going to flow where it's going to flow. And I think where we're seeing this happen the most is at the level of our laity and our general parishioners. Our hierarchs have been dealt a tough hand. And even recently with events going on around the world, it's a tough hand to try to forge unity out of it. And they're going to do what they need to do and work that out in the time that they know best. In the meantime, you're right. When we see things of value, my daughter, she's away at college, and she attends a Greek Orthodox parish. Number one, it's close, it's convenient, it's in a language she understands. They've reached out to her. The priest there is their priest of their OCF, and I thank God that it's there, and wonderful that there are resources throughout the different jurisdictions. And we're starting to see some interest as we put together our lineup of speakers. We're getting some people calling saying, I'm not Antiochian, but can I come? And we're about to try to figure out with our Faith Tree workshop for our clergy how we can accommodate, because we're seeing interest. People saying, non-Antiochian but Orthodox priests going, "You've got a great program. Can I come?" And so we've got to work out how that happens logistically, because we kind of thought we knew the size we were accommodating. But we're happy to. I'm happy to say, let's accommodate what we can do to bring others in. And there's so much being offered across the board in Orthodox in this country, and I think, thank God, it's there, and we're going to achieve unity naturally just by getting to know each other first. And like I said, the hierarchs will figure out what they've got to figure out. In the meantime, when something like this is being offered, we're happy to say, for somebody who wants to come, no matter who. I mean, even our speakers come from a variety of jurisdictions. Thank God this morning I just got an email from Mother Gabriela from Holy Dormition Monastery in Rives Junction, a little more than an hour away. She's accepted our invitation to speak. And so, and for her, she's the abbess of our closest monastery. She has a relationship with our parish already, even though they're another jurisdiction. And we don't think about that. It's just part of our big Orthodox family here.
Well, that's it for me. I think this has been a very good reminder for us to kind of get outside of ourselves and our daily routine and think about the bigger picture of the Orthodox Church and the Orthodox faith and what that looks like, and how important it is to continue to connect outside of our church, and why the hierarchs want us to be a part of our family reunions, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So we don't have any questions. I'm looking through the comments. I don't see any questions. So we do have a thank you from Father Nectarius about mentioning Canada. So it was there. And then Father Nectarius also asked for examples of connections made through the years to encourage parishioners. I'll go first really quickly. I can think of at least 3 people off the top of my head, without even spending time on it, who are now dear friends that I met at a Archdiocese convention, not the PLC, not some other. I mean, we know we have friendships from the PLCs, but I have at least 3 right now, without even looking through my phone book or my contacts. And so I don't know if how that relates to you, but these friendships make a difference in my life, and I wouldn't have them if I had not gone to the Archdiocese Convention.
There are friendships like that. There are marriages. In fact, one of our earliest ideas for a promo campaign was bring up people that were married because they met at a convention. And so watch for a couple of those coming up.
Yeah. I mean,
you're going to meet when you come to the convention.
Well, and so in the spirit of that, I met my wife at a PLC, a Parish Life Conference.
There you go.
So these events really do connect us.
Yep.
And so I will be forever grateful for our hierarchs encouraging us to get outside of our little community occasionally. It's not even that often, and make these relationships.
Yep, absolutely.
I think that's time for us. Father, you're busy getting ready to host us, and I'm so excited I get to see you this summer. Great. And you'll probably find some job for me while I'm there. I look forward to
decade 3 of that happening, so absolutely.
I look forward to it. I think we first met in the 90s, so I look forward to it.
That'll be great. Thanks for the chance to come on and talk about how important the convention, all these gatherings are. So thanks for the opportunity.
And as soon as the show ends, I will post in the comment section a link to the Archdiocese Convention official website. That
would be great. A lot of information there, and more being added all the time. So keep checking back there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Deacon.